Doctors said he would never walk again. But the cleaning woman approached and everything changed. Jennifer Wilson swallowed her tears as she signed another check for the doctors. Her son, Timmy, had been hospitalized for 3 weeks, and every specialist who examined the boy brought the same devastating answer. "Mrs. Wilson, we need to talk about your son's case," said the neurologist, adjusting his glasses with a serious air. Jennifer felt her heart tighten. Michael, her husband, held her hand firmly, but she could feel the tremor in his fingers. "The tests confirmed what we suspected. Complications during childbirth caused damage to the nerves in the lumbar region. Timmy won't be able to walk. I'm very sorry." The words seemed to echo in the elegant office. Jennifer looked out the window, seeing New York stretching into the distance, millions of people walking the streets, while her 1.5-year-old baby would never be able to do the same. "Doctor, are you sure?" "Isn't there any treatment?" Michael asked, his voice choked. "We consulted the best professionals in the country. They all agree. The best we can do is ensure quality of life for him. Physical therapy, proper equipment." Jennifer couldn't hear the rest. She left the room without saying anything, walking through the halls of the private hospital until she found the room where Timmy slept. The blonde baby, with his blue eyes inherited from his father, slept peacefully, unaware of the future that awaited him. 3 days later, Timmy was discharged. The Wilson mansion in the Upper East Side neighborhood was prepared with everything the doctors recommended: an adapted crib, a special chair, ramps on the stairs. Everything except hope. "I can't bear to see this," Jennifer murmured to her mother, Grandma Ruth, a 68-year-old woman who had lived with them since Jennifer's father had passed away years ago. "Daughter, you need to be strong for the boy," Grandma Ruth replied, but her eyes were also red. Michael buried himself in work. As the marketing director of a large company, he always found it easy to lose himself in meetings and reports. Jennifer, who was a sales manager, requested leave. She couldn't concentrate on anything but her son. That's how Dorothy entered their lives. Dorothy Johnson was 52 years old, her sun-tanned skin marked by the sun, her black hair already graying and tied in a bun. She arrived one Tuesday morning, brought by the domestic employment agency that Grandma Ruth had contacted. "Good morning. I'm Dorothy. I'm here for the cleaning position," she said with a Tennessee accent. Grandma Ruth received her in the kitchen. The house needed more help since Jennifer had stopped working and spent her days caring for Timmy. "Do you have experience?" "I've been working in cleaning for over 30 years, ma'am. I started as a young girl helping my mother. I've worked in homes, hospitals, offices. The house is large, 3 floors. There's a child here, my grandson. He needs special care." Dorothy nodded. Grandma Ruth didn't go into details, but something in the new cleaner's eyes conveyed an understanding that went beyond words. On the first day, Dorothy worked in silence. She cleaned the living room, the kitchen, the bathrooms. When she reached the 2nd floor, she heard a soft cry. She followed the sound to the room decorated with teddy bears and painted clouds on the wall. There was Timmy, awake in the adapted crib, crying. Dorothy entered slowly, not sure if she should. The baby looked at her with those wide blue eyes, tears streaming down his little face. "Hi, little one," she said softly. Timmy stopped crying for a moment, as if assessing this new voice. Dorothy moved closer, and the baby stretched out his little arms, asking to be held. She looked back, checking if anyone was coming, then carefully picked him up. It was at that moment that she noticed. Timmy's little legs were completely relaxed, without any movement. She knew that sign well. "You're a little warrior, aren't you?" she whispered, rocking him gently. "What are you doing?" Dorothy turned around, startled. Jennifer was at the door with an expression that mixed surprise and irritation. "I'm sorry, Mum. He was crying and I—" "Put him back in the crib. Now." Dorothy quickly obeyed, placing Timmy back. The baby started crying again, reaching his arms out to her. "I'm so sorry, Mum. I didn't mean to do anything wrong." Jennifer sighed, rubbing her tired eyes. "No, I'm sorry. It's just... I'm exhausted. Timmy has problems with his legs. He doesn't... The doctors said he'll never walk." Dorothy felt a tightness in her chest. She looked at the baby, still crying, and something inside her shifted. It wasn't pity. It was recognition. May I ask what happened? Jennifer, perhaps for the first time in weeks, felt like talking to someone who wasn't a doctor or family. Complications during childbirth. The nerves in the lumbar region were affected. He can move his arms, his head, but his legs, nothing. Are the doctors absolutely certain? 3 different specialists. All said the same thing. Dorothy was silent for a moment, then asked, "Do you mind if I keep working here in the room while he's awake? I promised not to touch him without permission." Jennifer hesitated but eventually agreed. There was something in Dorothy's calm voice that soothed her. In the following days, Dorothy established a routine. She cleaned Timmy's room always during the time he was awake. She talked to him while dusting, told simple stories, hummed old songs, and she observed. Timmy reacted to sounds. When Dorothy tapped the cloth against the side of the bucket, the baby turned his head. When she sang louder, he smiled, but his legs remained still. On a Thursday, Grandma Ruth came down for coffee and found Dorothy in the kitchen, her eyes red. "Did something happen?" Dorothy quickly wiped her face. "No, ma'am, it's just... the little one upstairs reminds me of someone." Grandma Ruth poured herself some coffee and sat at the table. "Do you want to talk about it?" Dorothy hesitated, but something in the older woman's kindness encouraged her. "I had a grandson, Ethan. He was born with similar problems. The doctors also said he'd never walk. What happened to him? He's in Tennessee with my daughter. Today he's 8 years old and runs around the house like any boy." Grandma Ruth almost dropped her cup. "How?" "My mother was a midwife back in the countryside. She knew old techniques, things she learned from her grandmother. When Ethan was born like that, she taught me. Special massages, sound stimulation, movement. It took years, but it worked." "Did you talk to the doctors about this?" "I tried. They said it was country superstition, that I was creating false hope. But I saw my grandson take his first steps, Grandma Ruth, with my own eyes." Grandma Ruth fell silent, processing the information. Then she asked, "Why aren't you in Tennessee with them?" Dorothy smiled sadly. "My daughter remarried. Her new husband got a good job in Nashville. They needed a house of their own, to start fresh." "I understood. I came to New York to try my luck, send money when I can." "Do you miss them?" "Every day. But that's how it is, right? We raise our children for the world, not to keep them attached to us." At that moment, Jennifer came down the stairs, ready for another day of caring for Timmy. She noticed the serious conversation between her mother and the cleaning lady, but didn't ask anything. Grandma Ruth, however, couldn't get the conversation out of her head. That night, when Michael came home from work, she asked to speak with him and Jennifer. "You need to hear what Dorothy told me today. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing." Michael listened to everything with evident skepticism. "Mom, with all due respect, this sounds exactly like the kind of story desperate people want to believe. Ancient techniques, miracle massages. We've already consulted the best doctors in the country." "I know, son, but what if there's a chance, even the tiniest possibility?" Jennifer was torn. Part of her wanted to cling to any hope. Another part feared the disappointment. "What do you suggest, Mom?" "That we let Dorothy try. With supervision, of course. What do we have to lose?" "Our sanity," Michael replied bitterly. "Jennifer is already suffering too much. I can't let them create false hope." "What if it's not false?" The silence that followed was heavy. Finally, Jennifer spoke. "I want to talk to her. Directly." The next morning, Jennifer called Dorothy to talk in the living room. The cleaner was nervous, twisting the dish towel between her hands. "Grandma Ruth told me about your grandson. Is it true?" "Yes, ma'am. Every word." "Why didn't you mention this before?" "It's not my place. I came here to work, not to give medical advice. And I know how people react when a cleaner from the countryside says she knows more than doctors." Jennifer appreciated the honesty. "Explain to me exactly what you did with your grandson." Dorothy sat down and began to detail. Specific massages that followed the nerve lines, sound stimuli at different frequencies, various textures to stimulate sensory responses, all based on knowledge passed down from generation to generation in her family. How long did it take for him to walk? 4 years, but the first movements came after 6 months of daily work. And the doctors, what did they say? At first that it was impossible. Later, when they saw the results, they had no explanation. One of them said maybe the damage wasn't as severe as they thought, but I know what I saw at the beginning. Ethan didn't move anything below the waist. Jennifer took a deep breath. If I let you try, it would have to be with supervision. I can't just ignore what the doctors said. I understand perfectly, ma'am. And if it doesn't work? If weeks, months pass and nothing happens? Dorothy looked directly into Jennifer's eyes. Then at least we tried, and Timmy will have received affection and attention, even if it results in nothing more. But I promise you one thing, if in 2 months there's no sign, not even the slightest movement, I'll give up myself. It was this commitment that convinced Jennifer. That afternoon, she called Timmy's neurologist and explained the situation. The doctor was categorical. Mrs. Wilson, I understand your hope, but I need to be clear. These techniques have no scientific basis. If you want to hire someone to give your son massages, it won't do any harm, but it also won't change the diagnosis. So there's no problem in trying? As long as it doesn't replace the real care he needs, no. But please don't get your hopes up. Jennifer thanked him and hung up. She looked at Dorothy, who was anxiously waiting for the decision. You have 2 months, but you have to teach me everything you do, and I'll be present at every session. Dorothy smiled for the first time since she had arrived at that house. Thank you, Mom. You won't regret it. Michael wasn't happy when he learned of the decision, but he understood that Jennifer needed this. She needed to feel she was doing something, trying something, instead of just passively accepting the medical verdict. The sessions began the next day. Dorothy arrived early, bringing a bag with oils she had prepared herself, different fabrics with various textures, and small objects that produced distinct sounds. First, we need to understand what Timmy still feels, explained Dorothy. Even with damaged nerves, there might be residual sensations. She began by gently touching Timmy's little legs with different fabrics: silk, rough cotton, velvet. She watched the baby's face closely for any reaction. See, when I use this one, she used a velvet fabric, his expression changes. It might be subtle, but he's feeling something. Jennifer watched, fascinated. She had never paid attention to these details before. Then Dorothy applied a warm oil to Timmy's legs and began the massages. They weren't random movements. She followed specific lines, pressed certain points, always observing the baby. My mother used to say the body has pathways we can't see. When a pathway is blocked, sometimes you can create another one. It's like when a road closes and you need to find a detour. Is there any medical basis for this? Jennifer asked, curious. I don't know if doctors call it that, but I've read about neuroplasticity. The brain can create new connections. That's what we're trying to do. Jennifer was surprised. Dorothy might not have had a formal education, but she had clearly sought to understand what she was doing. After the massages came the sound stimuli. Dorothy picked up a small toy drum and began beating specific rhythms near Timmy's legs. The sound creates vibrations. The vibrations reach the nerves, even the damaged ones. Over time, this can awaken something. Timmy seemed to love it. He clapped his little hands and smiled as Dorothy created different rhythmic patterns. The first week passed with no visible changes. Michael asked every day if there was any progress, and Jennifer had to admit there wasn't. But something was different. Timmy was happier. He interacted more, smiled more. Even if he doesn't walk, this is already worth it, Jennifer commented to her mother. Have faith, my dear. Dorothy said it took 6 months for the first signs. The second week brought an unexpected challenge. The nurse, who came 3 times a week to check on Timmy, noticed the changes in the routine. Mrs. Wilson, what are these oils and these massages? Was this recommended by the doctor? Jennifer explained the situation, but the nurse was visibly uncomfortable. I understand you're looking for alternatives, but I need to document this in my report. Dr. Thompson needs to know. The next day, the neurologist called, concerned. "Mrs. Wilson, I received the nurse's report. These massages and oils could interfere with proper care. I must ask you to stop this immediately." "But doctor, it's not doing any harm. Timmy is happier, more active." "The problem isn't his happiness. The problem is creating false hope that could harm your mental health and your husband's. Besides, without proper medical supervision, these practices could cause damage we can't yet predict." Jennifer felt anger rising. "With all due respect, doctor, you said my son would never walk. You said there was nothing to be done, so forgive me if I want to try something different. I understand your frustration, but as the physician responsible for this case, I can't approve treatments without scientific basis." "Then stop being the responsible physician." The silence on the other end of the line was heavy. "Mrs. Wilson, thank you for your services, doctor. I'll find another professional." Jennifer hung up, her hands shaking. Michael, who had heard everything, was pale. "You just fired the best pediatric neurologist in New York. He was preventing me from helping our son." "Jennifer, he was trying to protect us from greater disappointment." "And you? Have you already given up on Timmy?" The question cut deep. Michael didn't answer. He simply grabbed his keys and left, claiming he had a meeting. Grandma Ruth, who had watched everything in silence, approached her daughter. "You did the right thing." "Did I? Because I don't feel like it. I feel lost, Mum. What if Michael is right? What if I'm just fooling myself?" "Then you'll suffer when the time comes, but at least you won't spend the rest of your life wondering, what if?" Dorothy, who was upstairs with Timmy, came down when she heard the door slam. "Did something happen?" Jennifer told her about the doctor's call and the argument with Michael. "I understand if you want to stop. I don't want to cause problems in the family." "No, we'll continue. But I need you to promise me complete honesty. If there's no progress, you'll tell me, right?" "I promise." The sessions continued, now without formal medical supervision. Jennifer researched on her own about neuroplasticity, alternative therapies, cases of unlikely recovery. She found studies suggesting that a child's brain had a much greater capacity for adaptation than an adult's. She found documented cases of children who defied medical prognoses. But she also found dozens of stories of parents who clung to false hopes, spent fortunes on miracle treatments, and in the end, only had debts and broken hearts. Michael and Jennifer barely spoke. He left early and came back late. When he was home, he spent his time in the office. The distance between them grew each day. In the third week, during a session, something happened. Dorothy was doing the usual massages when Timmy started to cry. It wasn't the normal cry. It was a cry of discomfort. "What is it? Did I hurt him?" Dorothy stopped immediately. Jennifer picked up her son, trying to calm him. It was then that she noticed Timmy's right leg was slightly tense. It wasn't voluntary movement, but it wasn't the total relaxation from before either. "Dorothy, look at this." Dorothy examined carefully. "It might just be a muscle spasm. It doesn't necessarily mean—" "But it's different, isn't it? He's never had spasms before." "That's true. I'll note this. We need to observe if it happens again." Jennifer wanted to call Michael immediately, but she held back. She didn't want to create an expectation only to have to deny it later. She decided to wait, to observe. In the following days, the spasms happened more often, always during or right after the massages. Dorothy varied the techniques, trying to understand what caused the reaction. "It seems that when I apply pressure here," she pointed to the thigh area, "the leg responds more." It was in the fourth week that Jennifer finally told Michael. He was in the office reviewing reports when she entered without knocking. "I need to show you something." "Jennifer, I'm busy." "It's about Timmy." Michael sighed, but followed her to the baby's room. Dorothy was there preparing the daily session. "Show him," Jennifer requested. Dorothy positioned Timmy on the padded mat they used for massages and began applying the specific pressure she had discovered. After a few seconds, Timmy's leg visibly tensed. Michael knelt incredulous. Is that movement?" "Doctors would call it an involuntary spasm," Jennifer explained, "but it's happening consistently, always in the same spots." "When did it start?" "A week ago." "And you didn't tell me?" "You barely talked to me, Michael, and I didn't want to raise hopes if it was just nothing." Michael watched a few more repetitions. The muscle tension was undeniable. It wasn't controlled movement, but it was a response. Something was happening. We need to take him back to the doctor. That doctor, the one who told us to stop all this? Then another doctor, but someone needs to evaluate this professionally. Jennifer knew he was right. As much as she trusted Dorothy, they needed medical confirmation of what was happening. They found a pediatric neurologist, Dr. Margaret Foster, who had training in both traditional medicine and complementary therapies. When Jennifer explained the situation over the phone, the doctor didn't dismiss it immediately. "Bring your son in for an evaluation. Let's see what's happening." The appointment was scheduled for the following week. Meanwhile, Dorothy intensified the sessions. The spasms were becoming more frequent and stronger. "It's like the muscles are waking up after a long sleep," Dorothy explained. Grandma Ruth, who always attended the sessions when she could, noticed something more. "It's not just the leg. Look at his face when it happens. He's concentrating." It was true. Timmy would fix his gaze on his own legs when the spasms occurred, as if trying to understand what that sensation was. On the day of the appointment with Dr. Margaret, the whole family went. Even Michael took the day off work. The doctor was a woman in her 50s with short grey hair and a kind, attentive gaze. "So, tell me everything from the beginning," she requested. Jennifer recounted the entire story. The complicated birth, the diagnosis, the despair, Dorothy's arrival, the sessions, the first spasms. Dr. Margaret listened to everything without interrupting, making occasional notes. "And did you bring the person who does the massages?" "She's outside, in the waiting room." "Please ask her to come in." Dorothy entered, clearly nervous. She had never been in such an elegant medical office. "No need to be apprehensive," Dr. Margaret smiled. "I just want to understand exactly what you do." Dorothy explained the techniques, the oils, the sound stimuli. She talked about her midwife mother, her grandson, everything. "You know these techniques don't have formal scientific validation, right?" "Yes, doctor, but I've seen them work." "And you," Dr. Margaret turned to the parents, "understand that there may be no correlation between the massages and the spasms, that this could be a coincidence or part of the natural progression of his condition." "We understand," Michael replied, "but we want your professional opinion." Dr. Margaret examined Timmy carefully. She tested reflexes, sensitivity, muscle tone. She asked Dorothy to demonstrate the massages. She observed attentively when the spasms happened. After almost an hour of examination, she sat down and looked at the couple. "I'm going to be honest with you. What I'm seeing defies the initial prognosis. The spasms you describe aren't typical of severe nerve damage. There's a response to stimuli that suggests the neural pathways aren't completely compromised." Jennifer felt her heart race. "What does that mean?" "It means that maybe the initial diagnosis was too pessimistic, or that there's some neurological recovery we can't fully explain, or yes, that these techniques are having some beneficial effect." "So he can walk?" Michael asked, almost disbelieving. "I'm not going to promise anything, but I will say this. I want to follow this case closely. Continue with the sessions, but under my supervision. We'll do monthly MRIs, regular neurological tests, and we'll see what happens." For the first time in months, Jennifer felt something like genuine hope. It wasn't certainty, it wasn't a guarantee, but it was a real possibility. Michael, on the way back home, held Jennifer's hand. "I'm sorry for doubting. You were protecting your heart. I understand. No, it wasn't just that. I was afraid to try and fail. It's easier to accept the worst-case scenario than to fight for a better one and end up disappointed. But we're in this together now, right?" "We are, the three of us." He looked at Dorothy in the back seat, holding Timmy. "Actually, the four of us, counting Grandma Ruth." Dorothy smiled, wiping away a discreet tear. The following weeks were intense work. Dr. Margaret set up a protocol that combined Dorothy's techniques with modern physical therapy. She brought in a physical therapist specialized in pediatric neurology, Amanda, to work together. At first, Amanda was skeptical. "These folkloric massages have no scientific basis," she said in the first meeting. "But they're getting results," Dr. Margaret replied. "And if there's one thing I've learned in 20 years of medicine, it's that not everything that works is in the books." Amanda agreed to try, but made it clear she would do things her way too. The result was an interesting combination. In the morning, Dorothy conducted her traditional sessions. In the afternoon, Amanda applied evidence-based physical therapy exercises. Timmy, who was now almost 2 years old, was a happy child. He didn't understand the gravity of the situation, only that he received lots of attention and affection. It was in the 8th week since the sessions began that the significant breakthrough happened. Jennifer was alone with Timmy during one of the massages Dorothy had taught her to do. She applied pressure to the specific point on the thigh and waited for the usual spasm. But this time was different. The leg didn't just contract, it moved. It was a tiny movement, maybe 2 centimeters, but it was deliberate. Timmy was looking at his own leg, and when it moved, he let out a little cry of surprise and joy. Jennifer froze, not believing what she had just seen. "Timmy, do it again, sweetheart. Move your leg." As if understanding, the baby concentrated. Nothing happened for long seconds. Then, slowly, the leg moved again. Jennifer shouted for her mother. Mom, come here, quick!" Grandma Ruth ran up the stairs, alarmed. "What happened?" "He moved his leg, for real. It wasn't a spasm, it was movement." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. Do it again, Timmy. Let Grandma see." Timmy, sensing the excitement, tried again. This time, nothing happened. He began to get frustrated, his little face turning red with effort. "Calm down, sweetheart. You don't need to force it," Jennifer soothed him. She immediately called Michael, Dr. Margaret, Dorothy. Everyone needed to know. When Michael came home that night, he found the whole family gathered in Timmy's room. Dorothy had come even outside her working hours. Dr. Margaret had come straight from her office. "It could have been a misinterpretation of what you saw," Dr. Margaret cautioned. "The human brain tends to see what it wants to see." "I know what I saw," Jennifer insisted. "Then let's test it." Dr. Margaret performed a series of tests, applying different stimuli. For almost an hour, nothing happened. Timmy was tired, annoyed by all the handling. "Maybe it's better to try again tomorrow," Dorothy suggested. "He's very upset." But Michael didn't want to give up. "One more try, please." Dr. Margaret agreed. She applied a stronger stimulus, a firm but gentle pressure, and then, to everyone's surprise, Timmy's little leg bent slightly. It wasn't much, but it was undeniable. "My God," Dr. Margaret whispered. "It's voluntary movement. Very weak, but voluntary." The room erupted in joy. Jennifer cried, Michael cried, Grandma Ruth cried. Even Amanda, the skeptical physical therapist, had tears in her eyes. Dorothy held Timmy and softly sang the lullaby she sang for her grandson. But Dr. Margaret, though happy, remained cautious. "This is an incredible breakthrough, but it's still a very limited movement. The path to him actually walking is still long and uncertain." "But there is a path," Michael said. "That's what matters." That night, after everyone had left, Michael and Jennifer stayed up talking. "You know what's most amazing about all this," Jennifer said. "It's not just Timmy. It's Dorothy, a woman we barely knew, who could have just done her job and left, but chose to get involved, chose to care. We need to do something for her. Raising her salary doesn't seem enough. It's not about money. I think for her it's about the grandson who's far away, about giving to another child what she can no longer give to Ethan. Even so, she changed our lives." The news of Timmy's progress spread. Dr. Margaret, with the family's permission, presented the case at a pediatric neurology conference. The reaction was mixed. Some doctors were fascinated, others skeptical, some even hostile. "This is just anecdotal evidence," one doctor criticized. "An isolated case doesn't prove anything." "But it doesn't disprove anything either," Dr. Margaret replied. "How many isolated cases do we need to see before admitting that maybe we don't know everything?" The neurologist who had given the initial diagnosis heard about the case and called Jennifer Wilson. "Mrs. Wilson, I heard about the developments in your son's case. Dr. Thompson. I want to apologize, not for giving the diagnosis I did at the time because it was based on all available evidence, but for being so categorical in dismissing other possibilities." Jennifer was surprised by the humility. "Thank you for calling, Doctor. If there's anything I can do to help with Timmy's treatment, I'm available." It was an important moment of reconciliation. It showed Jennifer that not everything was black and white, that doctors were also human beings doing the best they could with the knowledge they had. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. The following months were of steady but slow progress. Timmy began to have more control over his movements, first one, then another. The left leg took longer than the right, but eventually it also started to respond. Timmy's second birthday was celebrated with a big party. Everyone who had participated in the journey was there. Dr. Margaret, Amanda, even some nurses from the hospital where Timmy was born. Dorothy brought her grandson, Ethan, from Tennessee. It was emotional to see the two boys together. Ethan, now 9 years old, ran around the house completely mobile. Timmy, sitting on the floor with support, watched the older boy fascinated. "This is Ethan," Dorothy introduced. "He was just like you as a baby." Timmy didn't understand the words, but he felt the connection. Ethan sat next to him and started playing, patient and gentle. "My grandmother helped me walk," Ethan said, even knowing Timmy didn't understand. "She's helping you too. You'll make it, believe me." Jennifer watched the scene with a lump in her throat. Dorothy was by her side. "Thank you," Jennifer said simply, "for everything." "I'm the one who should thank you, ma'am. You gave me a new family, a new purpose." It was at this party that an unexpected problem arose. Michael's mother, Barbara, showed up uninvited. She and Michael had a complicated relationship. Barbara had divorced Michael's father when he was a teenager and started a new life in another state. She rarely visited. "Son, I heard about my grandson. I came to see how he is." Michael became tense. He knew his mother well enough to know she never did anything without ulterior motives. "Hello, Mother. What a surprise." Barbara was 63 years old, well preserved, always impeccably dressed. She entered the house as if she owned the place. "So this is Timmy? Wow, what a beautiful baby. He takes after the Wilsons." Jennifer felt the comment as a subtle jab, but chose to ignore it. "Hi, Barbara, welcome." "Daughter, tell me everything. I've heard incredible stories about a cleaning lady who's performing miracles." The way she said cleaning lady made the disdain clear. Dorothy, who was nearby, felt Barbara's gaze on her. It was a look she knew well, the look of someone who sees others as inferior. "You must be the so-called miracle cleaning lady," Barbara said, without extending her hand. "My name is Dorothy, ma'am." "Of course." "Dorothy. Well, how lucky you are to have found someone like that. I bet you're making good money with this special work." Michael intervened. "Mother, Dorothy is part of our family. I ask that you treat her with respect." "Of course, son. I didn't mean to offend. It's just, well, I worry. This kind of unscientific treatment, are you sure you're not being deceived?" "The doctors are monitoring everything," Jennifer replied, her patience wearing thin. "Doctors can be deceived too. I knew of a family who spent a fortune on a faith healer and in the end discovered it was all a fraud." Grandma Ruth, who had remained silent until then, spoke up. "Barbara, with all due respect, you don't know what you're talking about. Dorothy isn't gaining anything beyond her fair salary, and if it weren't for her, Timmy would still be completely immobile." "Oh, Ruth, always defending the less fortunate. It's admirable, but sometimes we need to be more rational." The tension in the room was palpable. The guests began to feel uncomfortable. That's when Dorothy made a decision. "Excuse me," she said quietly and left the room. Jennifer followed her to the kitchen. "Don't mind her. Barbara is like that with everyone." "No, ma'am. She's right to question. I'm just a cleaner. Why would you trust me?" "Because you've proven you deserve trust. Because you care. Because you achieved what doctors said was impossible." "And what if she starts putting doubts in Michael's head? What if he decides to stop everything?" "He won't. He's seen the results. We all have." But Barbara had only just begun. In the following days, she stayed at the house, always making subtle comments, always planting seeds of doubt. "You know, son, I read that babies sometimes have delayed development. It might be that Timmy would have improved anyway, with or without those massages." "Mother, please. I'm just saying we can't attribute everything to one person. The doctors, the physical therapist, all of it together. Dorothy is an essential part of all this, if you say so. But I worry about how much you're trusting her. She has access to the whole house, your documents, your things. That was the last straw for Michael. Mother, I think it's best you go back to your home. Thank you for visiting, but I won't tolerate you disrespecting someone who's practically family. Barbara pretended to be offended. I'm just trying to protect you, son. I don't need that protection. I need you to respect my choices. Barbara left the next day, but not without making one last attempt to influence Jennifer. Dear, I just want you to know that if you need help finding real qualified professionals, I have contacts. I know wonderful clinics, real specialists. Thank you, Barbara, but we're doing very well with the team we have. After she left, the house felt lighter, but her words had left a mark. Jennifer caught herself thinking, what if Timmy would have improved anyway? What if Dorothy was just in the right place at the right time? She talked about this with Dr. Margaret at the next appointment. It's a valid question, the doctor answered. The truth is, we'll never know for sure. We can't go back in time and see what would have happened without Dorothy's interventions. But I can tell you this, Timmy's recovery isn't typical. It's not what we normally see in cases of nerve damage. Something is making a difference. Could it be the combination of everything? The massages, the physical therapy, the love, the attention. That's probably exactly it. And Dorothy was the catalyst for it all. She was the one who brought hope when there was none. She was the one who refused to accept the final verdict. That has value, regardless of how much her techniques contributed physiologically. Jennifer felt better with that perspective. It didn't have to be one thing or the other. It could be everything together. Timmy was 2.5 years old when he managed to stand for the first time with support. It was during a session with Amanda. She positioned him in parallel bars adapted for children and held his little hands. Come on, champ, try to stand up. Timmy looked at his own legs as if assessing the possibility. Then, with visible effort, he began to push. His little legs trembled. His knees threatened to buckle, but he remained upright for 3 seconds before falling into a seated position. Amanda screamed with joy. She called everyone. When Dorothy arrived for her afternoon session, Timmy repeated the feat. This time he stayed on his feet for 5 seconds. He's ready to begin gait training, Amanda announced. With support, of course, but he's ready. It was another 6 months of intensive work. Timmy learned to balance, to take small steps with full support, then with partial support. Every advance was celebrated as the greatest victory. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were setbacks. There were weeks where Timmy made no progress. There were days when he became frustrated and refused the sessions. There were moments where Jennifer doubted if all that effort was worth it. What if he never walks on his own? She confessed to Michael on a difficult night. What if he always needs support? Then we'll be here to be his support. But we'll keep trying. We can't give up now. It was Grandma Ruth who brought an important perspective in a conversation with her daughter. You know, Jennifer, when your father passed, I thought my life was over. I spent months not knowing how to move forward. But then I realized I had you. I had a reason to continue, to be strong. Timmy is your reason. It doesn't matter if he walks or not. What matters is that you are fighting for him. But I want so much for him to have a normal life. And he will. It might not be the life you imagined, but it will be his life. And it will be good because it will be surrounded by love. Those words stayed with Jennifer. They helped her through the difficult days that followed. When Timmy was 3, an incident happened that almost destroyed everything. Dorothy was giving a massage when Timmy started screaming in pain. She stopped immediately, frightened. "What is it, my love? Where does it hurt?" Timmy cried uncontrollably, holding his left leg. Jennifer came running. "What happened?" "I don't know. I was doing the usual massage and he started screaming." They rushed Timmy to the hospital. Tests showed an inflammation of the sciatic nerve. The doctor who attended to them was direct. "These massages you've been doing may have caused this. Improper manipulation can worsen existing neurological damage." Jennifer turned pale. She looked at Dorothy, who was devastated. I was always so careful." "You are not a certified professional," the doctor continued without pity. "You have no formal training. This was bound to happen eventually. Dr. Margaret was called and arrived as quickly as she could. She examined Timmy, reviewed the tests, and spoke with the on-duty doctor. "The inflammation is real," she admitted, "but not necessarily caused by the massages. It could be a natural reaction to the increased activity in his legs. The nerves are being used more than ever." "Or it could be from improper manipulation," the other doctor insisted. "It could. But without definitive evidence, we cannot state that." Timmy needed to be hospitalized for 3 days to treat the inflammation. During this time, the sessions were suspended. Dorothy couldn't stop blaming herself. What if I hurt him? What if I caused more damage? "You don't know that," Jennifer tried to console her, but her own voice was full of doubt. Michael was torn. On one hand, he saw the progress Timmy had made. On the other, he couldn't ignore the possibility that the unproven techniques were causing harm. "Maybe it's time to focus only on conventional physical therapy," he suggested. "Are you giving up on her after everything?" "I'm not giving up. I'm being cautious. Our son is in pain, Jennifer. Real pain. And if we stop now, what if he loses all his progress? And if we continue and cause permanent damage?" There was no easy answer. When Timmy was discharged, Dr. Margaret called the family for a meeting. "We need to make an informed decision. I'll be completely honest. We can't prove the massages caused the inflammation, but we also can't prove they didn't. What I can say is that the inflammation is under control now, and Timmy shows no signs of additional damage." "So, what do you recommend?" Jennifer asked. "Continue, but with modifications. Less intensity in the massages, more time between sessions. And at the first sign of discomfort, we stop and evaluate. What if it happens again? Then we'll have to reconsider the approach. But I don't think we should completely abandon something that was working because of an isolated incident." It was a difficult decision, but they agreed to try. Dorothy was terrified of hurting Timmy again. Her hands trembled during the first sessions after the incident. "Are you okay?" Jennifer asked. "I'm scared. What if I did it wrong and didn't even notice? What if I don't know as much as I thought I did?" "Dorothy, look at me. You changed my son's life. One incident doesn't erase all the months of progress. We learn and move forward," but Dorothy's confidence was shaken. The sessions became shorter, more hesitant, and Timmy's progress stalled. Amanda noticed the change. "Dorothy, you're afraid to touch him properly. This won't work if you don't fully commit. What if I hurt him again? What if you don't try and he loses the chance to walk?" It was Grandma Ruth who had the conversation Dorothy needed to hear. She found the cleaner alone in the kitchen, staring at her hands. "Can I tell you a story?" Dorothy nodded. "When Jennifer was little, she fell off her bike and broke her arm. I was terrified, blaming myself for letting her ride. I swore I'd never allow it again. But you know what my husband said? He said, 'If you don't let her get back on the bike, you'll be teaching her to be afraid. And fear is worse than any broken bone.' But this is different. Timmy is so fragile." "Yes, but he's also strong, stronger than anyone expected. And you're part of that strength. You can't give up on him now." "I'm so afraid of failing." "Everyone has fear. The question is what you do with that fear. Do you let it paralyze you, or use it to be more careful, more attentive?" That conversation was a turning point. Dorothy didn't lose her fear, but she learned to work with it. She returned to the sessions with renewed determination, but also with more attention to the signals Timmy gave, and the progress returned. Slowly, but it returned. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Timmy was 3.5 years old when something unexpected happened. Ethan, Dorothy's grandson, came to visit them again. This time he would stay for a whole week during the school holidays. The two boys, despite the age difference, developed a special bond. Ethan was patient and encouraging. He spent hours playing with Timmy, always encouraging the younger boy to try new things. It was Ethan who had the idea that would change everything. "Grandma, why don't we have Timmy try to walk to me? Like, I stand a little bit away and he tries to come." Dorothy looked at Jennifer, uncertain. It might be too frustrating for him. "Or it might be exactly the motivation he needs," Jennifer replied. They tried the next afternoon. They positioned Timmy standing with the support of the bars. Ethan moved about a meter away and crouched down. "Come on, Timmy, come here to me." Timmy looked at the distance, then looked at his own legs. Everyone saw the moment he made the decision. He gripped the bars tightly and took a step, then another. They were clumsy steps, with his knees nearly buckling with each movement, but they were steps. He managed 3 steps before losing his balance. Ethan ran and caught him before he fell. "You did it! See? You can walk!" The joy on Timmy's face was unmistakable. He had understood. He could do this. In the following days, with Ethan as motivation, Timmy surpassed all expectations. He began taking more steps, gaining more confidence. When Ethan had to return to Tennessee, Timmy cried, but the seed was planted. "I'll be back next vacation," Ethan promised, "and when I come back, I want to see you walking on your own, okay?" It was the promise Timmy needed. Even without fully understanding the words, he understood the feeling. The next months were intensive training. Timmy was motivated in a way he had never been before. He wanted to walk. He wanted to show Ethan he could do it. There were falls, many falls, scraped knees, cut lips, tears of frustration. But there were also victories. The first day he walked 5 steps without support. The first day he walked 10 steps. The first day he crossed the entire room, unsteady but on his own. Michael and Jennifer documented everything. Photos, videos, notes. They wanted to remember every moment of this impossible journey. It happened on a Saturday morning, 3 months after Ethan's visit. Jennifer was in the kitchen with Grandma Ruth preparing breakfast when they heard footsteps, a child's footsteps. They turned and saw Timmy at the kitchen door, alone, without support. He had come down the stairs, which had a safety gate he somehow opened, crossed the living room, and reached the kitchen. "Mommy," he said, smiling proudly. Jennifer fell to her knees, tears streaming. You walked on your own." Timmy ran. It looked more like a fast, unsteady walk, but to him it was a run, into his mother's arms. Michael, who was in the office, heard the shouts and came to see what it was. He found his wife and son on the kitchen floor crying with joy, while Grandma Ruth was already on the phone calling Dorothy. When everyone arrived, Timmy was exhausted but happy. He had repeated the walk through the house several times, each time more confident. It wasn't a perfect walk. He had a limp, his steps were uneven, sometimes he needed to balance himself. But he was walking. Dr. Margaret, when she found out, asked to see him in person. She ran a series of tests, examined every aspect of Timmy's mobility. "It's extraordinary," she admitted. "Based on the initial prognosis, this was impossible. But here he is, defying all odds." "Will he be able to have a normal life?" Jennifer asked. "It depends on what you call normal. He will have some limitations. The limp will probably remain. He may have difficulties with intense physical activities. But he will walk. He will run in his own way. He will play. He will have a childhood." It was all Jennifer needed to hear. The news spread. Friends, family, even people who barely knew the Wilsons sent congratulatory messages. Timmy's story became an inspiration for other families dealing with difficult diagnoses. But with attention also came controversy. Doctors debated the case. Some said the initial diagnosis was wrong. Others argued it was a case of rare but not impossible neurological recovery. Few were willing to give credit to Dorothy's techniques. There were even those who accused the family of fabricating the whole story to gain attention or money. Jennifer had to deal with cruel comments on social media, with people saying they were irresponsible parents for trusting a cleaning lady instead of real doctors. Michael wanted to sue the people making the more serious accusations, but Jennifer stopped him. "Let it go. We know the truth. Timmy knows the truth. That's what matters." The hardest part to handle was the desperate families who started seeking them out. Parents of children with similar conditions, begging to know the secret, wanting to hire Dorothy, willing to pay any amount. Dorothy became extremely uncomfortable with this. "I'm not a doctor. I can't promise anything to these people. What worked with Timmy might not work with other children. But wouldn't you like to try to help other families?" a desperate mother asked when she appeared at the Wilsons' door. "I would. But it would be wrong to give false hope. Timmy's case was special. There were many factors, the doctors, the physical therapy, the family's love, Ethan. It wasn't just my massages. Dr. Margaret had the same conversation dozens of times with medical colleagues. We're not saying her techniques are the cure. We're saying that in this specific case, as part of a multidisciplinary approach, they had a positive effect. This isn't replicable as a standard medical protocol. But you're giving hope to families who will seek out healers and charlatans, a colleague argued. And the alternative is to tell these families there's no hope at all. Where's the compassion in that? It was a dilemma with no easy solution. Eventually, Dr. Margaret and her team decided to document the case academically, publishing an article in a medical journal. The article was careful to point out it was a single case study, not a proven protocol, but also didn't dismiss alternative techniques when used alongside evidence-based medicine. The article generated more debate, but also opened doors for research on childhood neuroplasticity and integrated treatment approaches. For the Wilson family, life was returning to normal, or rather, finding a new normal. Timmy started going to a preschool. At first, Jennifer was terrified. What if other children made fun of him for walking differently? What if teachers didn't know how to handle his special needs? But Timmy, with the resilience of children, adapted well. He made friends. Some noticed he walked funny, but for children that age, it was just another characteristic like having blonde hair or wearing glasses. Dorothy continued working at the Wilsons' house, but her role changed. She was no longer just a cleaner. She was part of the family. She had lunch with them, participated in decisions about Timmy, was invited to all family events. "You know you don't have to clean anymore, right?" Jennifer said one day. "We can hire you officially as Timmy's caregiver, or as a therapist, or—" "I like cleaning," Dorothy interrupted her, smiling. "It keeps me grounded. It reminds me where I came from and what really matters." Grandma Ruth and Dorothy became close friends. They spent afternoons talking, exchanging recipes, sharing life stories. Two women from different generations and backgrounds, united by love for a child. It was Grandma Ruth who first noticed Dorothy looked different. "Are you okay? You look tired." "It's just age catching up," Dorothy joked. 53 isn't 20 anymore." But the tiredness continued, and it started coming with joint pain, shortness of breath when climbing stairs. "You need to see a doctor," Grandma Ruth insisted. "Oh, it's not necessary, it's just tiredness." "Dorothy Johnson, you who spent years caring for Timmy, telling us to see doctors, get tests, and now you don't take care of your own health." The irony didn't go unnoticed. Dorothy finally agreed to get a checkup. The results weren't good. Heart problems, probably congenital, but worsened by years of heavy work and lack of regular medical care. Nothing immediately serious, but she needed treatment and lifestyle changes. "You need to reduce physical work," the cardiologist advised. "No heavy lifting, no excessive exertion, and you'll need continuous medication." Dorothy was devastated. How could you do your job without physical effort? When she told the Wilson family, Michael got straight to the point. "Then don't. No more cleaning, just focus on Timmy." "But I need to work. I need to send money to my daughter. We'll figure it out. I'll increase your salary. You won't do anything that could harm your health." "But, Dorothy," Jennifer intervened, "you cared for our son when no one else believed. Let us take care of you now." It was a difficult adjustment for Dorothy. She defined herself through work, through her ability to do things to help. Not doing the cleaning felt wrong, but she found a new purpose. She began teaching massage techniques to other interested professionals. Dr. Margaret organized workshops where Dorothy, under medical supervision, shared knowledge passed down through generations in her family. "It's not to replace medical treatment," she always emphasized. "It's to complement it, and always, always, with the supervision of qualified professionals." One year after Timmy's first walk, Ethan came back to visit them during summer vacation. He was taller, more mature, but had the same kindness. Timmy, now 4.5 years old, ran in his own way to hug his friend as soon as he saw him. "Ethan, look, I'm walking." "I know, Grandma sent me videos. I'm so proud of you." The two boys spent the week playing, and it was beautiful to see how Ethan never treated Timmy as different. They ran together, at different speeds, but together, played ball, adapting the rules when necessary. They were just two boys being friends. One afternoon, Jennifer found Ethan alone in the backyard, watching Timmy play. "Is everything okay?" "Yes, Aunt Jennifer. I was just thinking. When I was little and couldn't walk, I used to get so frustrated, but Grandma always said I would manage, and she was right. And now Timmy managed too. You helped him a lot, Ethan. You gave him the motivation he needed. It's strange because Grandma helped me walk and now she helped Timmy. It's like she has a superpower." Jennifer smiled. "It's not a superpower. It's love and knowledge and a lot of patience. When I grow up, I want to help children like my grandma does. I'm going to be a physical therapist." It was a simple declaration from a 10-year-old boy, but it deeply moved Jennifer. Dorothy's legacy was multiplying. When Timmy turned 5, the family organized a big party. It wasn't just to celebrate another year of life, but to celebrate the journey. Dr. Margaret was there, along with Amanda. Several other families who had followed Timmy's story were invited. And, in a surprise organized by Michael, even Dr. Thompson, the first neurologist, attended. "I know I dismissed you rudely," Jennifer greeted him. "And I deserved it. I was being inflexible. I'm here today not only to celebrate Timmy, but to apologize and acknowledge that I was wrong." It was an important gesture of humility. During the party, Michael asked for everyone's attention to make a speech. 5 years ago, when Timmy was born and we received the diagnosis, I thought my life was over. Not his life, mine. Because I could only think of everything he would never do, all the dreams he would never achieve. I was wrong on so many levels. He looked at Dorothy as he continued. "A woman we barely knew entered our home. She didn't have degrees from expensive colleges. She didn't have impressive titles. She only had knowledge passed down from generation to generation, love in her heart, and a refusal to accept the impossible." Dorothy was crying, as were most of the people present. "Dorothy Johnson, you not only helped our son walk, you taught us to have hope, to fight, to question, to never give up. You taught us that medicine isn't just science, it's also compassion, intuition, and sometimes a little bit of faith." He paused, picking up a small box. "This is little compared to what you deserve, but we wanted you to know how much you mean to us." He opened the box, revealing a medal. It wasn't official, just something they had made. It read, "To Dorothy, with eternal love and gratitude, the Wilson family." Dorothy couldn't speak. She just hugged Michael, then Jennifer, then Grandma Ruth, then Timmy. "I didn't do anything special," she finally managed to say. "Just what anyone would do." "No," Dr. Margaret spoke up. "You did exactly what most people wouldn't do. You cared enough to try." The party continued late into the night. Timmy, tired but happy, eventually fell asleep in Dorothy's lap. Jennifer took a picture of that moment. The cleaning lady who changed everything, holding the boy who wasn't supposed to walk. In the years that followed, Timmy continued to progress. His limp lessened, though it never completely disappeared. He learned to run, to jump, to play like any child. He had limitations, yes, but he also had abilities. He was brilliant academically, creative, kind. When he was 7, a teacher remarked to Jennifer, "You know, sometimes I look at Timmy and forget he has such a difficult history. He's just a happy child." It was the greatest compliment Jennifer could receive. Dorothy continued working with the family until she turned 60. At that point, her heart problems required her to reduce her activities even further. Michael and Jennifer insisted that she retire, but continue to receive a monthly salary as a consultant and part of the family. "It's not charity," Michael explained when she protested. "You changed our lives. That has value far beyond money." Dorothy eventually accepted, but on one condition: that part of the money be used to create a scholarship fund for young people from humble backgrounds who wanted to study physical therapy or related fields. "That way, Ethan won't have to worry when he decides to follow this path," she explained. The fund was created in Timmy's name and had already benefited 5 students by the time Timmy turned 10. At that age, Timmy fully understood his story. He knew he wasn't supposed to walk. He knew Dorothy had helped him in a way doctors said was impossible, and he was eternally grateful. "Dorothy," he said one day, now able to articulate complex thoughts, When I grow up, I want to help people like you helped me. How do you mean, my love? I want to be a doctor, but not the kind that just follows the book. I want to be the kind who listens, who tries, who doesn't give up on people. Dorothy felt her heart swell. Her legacy wasn't just a boy walking. It was how that boy saw the world. Ethan, true to the promise he made at 10, was studying physical therapy. During breaks, he interned at Dr. Margaret's office. He was 17 and a promising young man, full of compassion and dedication. "One day I'll treat you, Timmy," he joked, "when you're old and your legs are tired." "And I'll be the most difficult patient," Timmy replied, laughing. It was a friendship that had withstood the years, forged in the most unlikely circumstances. Grandma Ruth, now 78, spent her days proud of the family she had. She saw her daughter happy, her grandson healthy, her friend Dorothy well cared for. Everything a matriarch could want. Michael and Jennifer, who had gone through such difficult times that they nearly destroyed their marriage, emerged stronger. They learned that love isn't just about being together in good times. It's about choosing to stay together when everything seems lost. Once, Jennifer remarked to Michael, "You know, sometimes I think about what would have happened if we hadn't let Dorothy try, if we had just accepted the diagnosis and moved on. Don't think about that, it's no use. But it makes me realize how much our choices matter. One decision in a moment of despair changed everything." It wasn't just one decision. It was a series of choices, choosing to try, choosing to trust, choosing not to give up when it got hard. Jennifer agreed, and it was true. It hadn't been a miracle. It had been hard work, dedication, and many, many right choices. When Timmy was 12, the family received an unexpected invitation. A television program wanted to make a documentary about their story. Jennifer was hesitant. "I don't want to expose Timmy like that. He already got too much attention as a child." But Timmy, who now had a voice in the decisions that affected him, thought differently. "Mum, if my story can give hope to other families, I want to share it." "Are you sure?" They will ask a lot of questions. They will want to know details. "I'm sure. And what about Dorothy? Is she on board?" Dorothy, now 63, was even more hesitant than Jennifer. "I'm not good in front of cameras. I'm just a simple woman." "Exactly," Timmy argued. "That's what people need to see, that you don't have to be anything extraordinary to make a difference." The documentary was filmed over 3 months. It showed the family's routine, interviewed doctors, physical therapists, even people who had been skeptical at first. The most emotional part was seeing Timmy and Ethan together, now a teenager and a preteen, reflecting on the journey they had shared. "Did you ever think your grandma saved 2 lives?" Timmy asked Ethan during a recording. "What do you mean?" "She saved me from a life without walking. And she saved you 2 years earlier. That's an incredible legacy." When the documentary aired, it had a huge impact. Millions of people watched it. There was criticism, of course, doctors who insisted the case was atypical, that people shouldn't abandon traditional medicine because of one inspiring story. But there were also countless messages from families saying the documentary gave them the courage not to give up, to seek second opinions, to trust their instincts. Dr. Margaret used the attention to launch a research project on neuroplasticity and neurological recovery in children. She secured funding to study similar cases, trying to understand what exactly had worked in Timmy's case. "We're not going to find a magic formula," she explained, "but maybe we can better understand how to combine different approaches to maximize recovery chances." It was exactly the kind of legacy Dorothy had hoped for. She didn't want to be seen as a miracle healer. She wanted her techniques to be studied, validated, integrated with modern medicine. Timmy, inspired by all the attention, started to write. First small texts about his experience, then posts on a blog that Jennifer helped him create, eventually with the help of a professional writer, a book. Impossible Steps, A Journey of Hope was published when Timmy was 15. It wasn't a bestseller, but it sold enough for the story to reach even more people. Part of the profits went to the scholarship fund Dorothy had created, part went to Dr. Margaret's research, and part was saved for Timmy's future. Dorothy was moved when she received the first copy with a special dedication, "To Dorothy, who taught me to walk and, more importantly, taught me to never give up. With eternal love, Timmy. I never imagined having my name in a book, she said, her hands trembling as she held the volume. It's the least you deserve, Jennifer replied. When Timmy was 16, something happened that brought everything back into perspective. Dorothy had a serious heart episode. It wasn't fatal, but it was a reminder that time was precious and finite. During her recovery in the hospital, it was Timmy who stayed by her side every day after school. You should be with your friends, young man, not in a hospital with an old lady. You stayed with me when I needed it. Now it's my turn. He read to her. He told stories from school. He kept her company. And sometimes he gave gentle massages to her arthritic hands, using techniques she herself had taught years before. Look at that, Dorothy observed, moved. The student has surpassed the teacher. Never, but I learned from the best. Those weeks in the hospital reinforced something everyone knew but didn't always acknowledge. The relationship between Dorothy and Timmy transcended any simple definition. It wasn't employer and employee. It wasn't therapist and patient. It wasn't even grandmother and grandson, though it was similar. It was something unique, forged through years of shared struggle. When Dorothy was discharged, Timmy organized a welcome back party. Small, just family and close friends, but full of love. You know, Dorothy said during the party, sometimes I think I needed Timmy as much as he needed me. After I left Tennessee, I felt lost, without purpose. And then this blonde baby who couldn't move his legs came along, and suddenly I had a reason to be again. You always had a reason to be, Grandma Ruth gently corrected. You just found a new way to express it. The two friends, now both in their 60s, exchanged a look of understanding. They had lived very different lives, but found common ground in their love for a child. Ethan, now 23 and a physical therapy graduate, came especially for the party. He was working at a clinic in Boston, but always made a point to visit when he could. Grandma, I have some news, he announced during the party. Good or bad? Good. I was accepted into a master's program. I'm going to research neurological recovery in children, and guess who's going to be my advisor? Who? Dr. Margaret. She started a research line at the university and invited me to join the team. Dorothy burst into tears of joy. Her grandson, the boy who wasn't supposed to walk, was now becoming a researcher who would help other children in similar situations. And you, Ethan turned to Timmy, when you finish high school, you should think about joining the research too, as a subject and as a collaborator. Your story has a lot to teach. Timmy, now a confident and articulate 16-year-old, despite the slight limp that remained, smiled. I'm already doing my part, but who knows? Medicine is on the list of possibilities. It was surreal for Jennifer and Michael to hear their son talking about the future, about college, about a career, things they were sure they would never hear. That night, after everyone had left and Timmy had gone to sleep, Michael and Jennifer stayed on the porch looking at the stars of New York, the few visible through the light pollution. Do you believe in destiny? Jennifer asked. I don't know. Why? Because sometimes I think all of this had to happen exactly as it did. The complicated birth, the devastating diagnosis, Dorothy showing up at our door that specific day. Maybe. Or maybe it's just life. Bad things happen. But if we're lucky, good people come along to help us through them. Dorothy was more than luck. She was a blessing. She was, Michael agreed. And I'm grateful every day that I wasn't too proud to accept help from a cleaner from the countryside. It was an important confession. Michael had changed a lot over the years. The workaholic businessman, who hid in work to avoid dealing with difficult emotions, had learned to be present, to value what truly matters. Timmy graduated from high school with honors. His grades were excellent, especially in biology and chemistry. He had been accepted to several prestigious universities. During the graduation ceremony, when he was called to the stage to receive his diploma, the limp in his walk was just a detail. What people saw was a brilliant young man full of future ahead. In his graduation speech, he was chosen to represent the class. Timmy spoke about his journey. When I was a year and a half old, doctors said I would never walk. Statistically, they were right. Medically, they were right. But there was one thing they didn't account for: the power of unconditional love and the refusal to accept limitations. The audience was completely silent. I was lucky to have a family that never gave up. I was lucky to have doctors who were eventually willing to think outside the box. But above all, I was lucky to have an extraordinary woman, Dorothy Johnson, who came into my life and said, "No, this baby will walk." And here I am, walking to this stage. Dorothy, sitting in the audience between Jennifer and Grandma Ruth, was crying profusely. Jennifer held her hand. "This walk to the stage isn't just mine," Timmy continued. "It belongs to everyone who believed. It belongs to everyone who worked. It belongs to everyone who refused to accept impossible as the final answer. And if I can give one piece of advice to my classmates here today, when life says something is impossible, get a second opinion, third, fourth. And if everyone still says it's impossible, find someone as stubborn as Dorothy to help you try anyway." The audience erupted in applause. It was one of the proudest moments in Dorothy's life. Timmy decided to study medicine, specializing in neurology. He wanted to scientifically understand what had happened to him. He wanted to help other children. He wanted to be the kind of doctor Dr. Margaret was, evidence-based but open to possibilities. Ethan, working on his master's degree, often collaborated with Timmy despite the age difference. They made an interesting pair, the research physical therapist and the medical student who was himself a case study. When Timmy was 20 years old and in his second year of medical school, he received an invitation to speak at a medical conference. They wanted him to present his story from a personal perspective, to remind doctors that behind every case there is a person, a family, a story. Dorothy, now 68 years old and dealing with increasingly fragile health, couldn't attend the conference, but she watched via online stream with Grandma Ruth by her side. "Look at him," Dorothy murmured, seeing Timmy on stage, confident, articulate. "Who would have thought that little baby who couldn't even move his legs would be there, speaking to hundreds of doctors?" "You would have said so," Grandma Ruth replied. "You always knew." "I didn't know. I had hope. It's different. Sometimes hope is all we need." Timmy's presentation was a success. He not only told his story, but challenged the audience to rethink how they gave prognoses to families. "When you say never, you're taking away hope," he argued. "How about saying it's highly unlikely or based on what we currently know? That leaves room for the unknown, for the unlikely, for cases like mine." There was resistance, of course. Some doctors argued that false hope was worse than hard honesty, but others understood the point. Dr. Thompson, the neurologist who had given the original diagnosis and was present at the conference, spoke up. "I gave this young man his diagnosis when he was a baby. I said categorically that he would never walk. I was wrong. And I learned through this case that our medical certainty must always have room for humility, to recognize that we don't know everything, that miracles or what we call highly unlikely outcomes do happen." It was a powerful moment of a senior doctor acknowledging his limitations publicly. After the presentation, dozens of doctors approached Timmy. They wanted to know more. They wanted to understand. Some had patients in similar situations and wanted to know what to recommend. "Always start with evidence-based medicine," Timmy advised. "But don't close the door to complementary approaches, especially when traditional medicine has no more answers. And above all, listen to the family. Listen to what they're trying to tell you." That conference was a turning point. It started a movement, still small, of integrative pediatric medicine. It wasn't about abandoning science. It was about combining science with compassion, evidence with openness, expertise with humility. Dr. Margaret, who had watched everything, was radiant. "Do you know what you just did?" she said to Timmy. "You planted seeds that will change how the next generation of doctors thinks." "I hope so. No child should grow up being defined by what they'll never do." That night, Timmy called Dorothy. "Hi, Dorothy, how are you feeling?" "Well, my love, tired but well. I saw your presentation. It was beautiful. I wish you had been there." "I was, not physically, but I was in every word you said. I was in every step you took on that stage." Timmy was moved. "Dorothy, I'll never be able to thank you enough." "No need to thank me, Timmy. You gave me as much as I gave you. You gave me purpose when I had lost it. You gave me family when I was alone. You gave me hope that my mother's knowledge, my grandmother's, wouldn't die with me. You are my greatest gift. You know I love you, right? Not as a maid, not as a therapist, as family, as the person who was always there. I know. And I love you too, my boy, I always will. In that conversation, both knew, without saying, that Dorothy's time was running out. Her heart, which had always been strong in spirit, was failing in function. The next months were difficult. Dorothy spent more time in hospitals than at home. Timmy visited whenever he could, balancing medical studies with being present for the woman who had done so much for him. "You should be studying, not here," she always said. "I'm exactly where I need to be." During one of these visits, Dorothy asked Timmy to do something. "I want you to give me the massages, the same ones I used to give you." "Dorothy, I don't know if—" "Please, I want to feel it. I want to close the circle." Timmy agreed. With gentle hands, he applied the same movements Dorothy had used on him so many years before. He followed the nerve lines, pressed the specific points, created the rhythms she had taught. "You learned well," she murmured, eyes closed. "I had the best teacher. You know what's funny? When I did this for you, I was trying to give you movement. Now you're doing it for me. You're giving me peace." "Don't talk like that. Don't be afraid, Timmy. I've had a good life. Difficult, but good. I saw my grandson walk. I saw you walk. I saw my knowledge validated. What more could a woman want? More time. More years with the people who love you. I've had enough time. And I've been loved. Very loved. That's more than many people get." Dorothy passed away peacefully on an autumn morning surrounded by family. Not only her blood family, Ethan and her daughter who came from Tennessee, but also her chosen family, the Wilsons. Timmy was holding her hand when she left, and even through the tears, he felt a strange sense of completeness, as if a cycle had closed perfectly. The funeral was large, not because Dorothy was famous or rich, but because she had touched so many lives, families who knew her story, healthcare professionals who learned from her, students who received scholarships from the fund she had created. Dr. Margaret gave the eulogy. Dorothy Johnson had no diplomas, no certifications, no validation from official institutions. But there was something more valuable, wisdom passed down through generations, unconditional love, and the courage to challenge the impossible. She directly changed the lives of at least 2 children. But indirectly, she changed the entire field of pediatric neurology, forcing us to question our certainties and open our minds. It was a beautiful tribute to an extraordinary life. After the funeral, while organizing Dorothy's things, they found a notebook. It was a diary she had kept throughout the time she worked with Timmy. She had documented every session, every progress, every setback. "She was doing research," Ethan observed, flipping through the pages. Without even knowing she was. At the end of the notebook there was a letter. It was addressed to Timmy. "My dear boy, if you are reading this, it means I have passed on. Don't be sad. I had a wonderful life, especially the years I spent with your family. I want you to know that you saved me as much as I saved you. When I arrived in New York, I was lost. I had left my grandson in Tennessee, feeling I had no purpose left. And then God, the universe, fate, whatever it is, placed you in my path. You gave me a reason to wake up every day. You gave me something to fight for. You gave me a second family when I thought I was destined to be alone. The notebook you are holding has everything I did with you, every technique, every massage, every exercise. It's all documented. I didn't leave this for you to become famous or make money. I left it because this knowledge needs to continue. It needs to be studied, improved, used to help other children. My mother taught me. I taught you and Ethan. Now you will teach others. That's how the legacy continues. Be an amazing doctor, Timmy. Be the kind of doctor who listens, who cares, who never says impossible when they can say, let's try. And remember, you were always special, not for walking when they said you wouldn't, but for who you are inside, for your kind heart, your curious mind, your spirit that refuses to give up. I love you, my boy. I always will. With all my heart, Dorothy Timmy read the letter aloud to the gathered family. There wasn't a dry eye when he finished. She knew, he said. She knew she was documenting for the future. And now we have a guide, Ethan added, based on real cases, on genuine experience. This will be invaluable for research. Dorothy's notebook became the foundation for several studies. Ethan used it in his master's, then in his doctorate. Timmy constantly referenced it in his medical studies. Other researchers asked for permission to study it. She became a posthumous co-author on several papers, Jennifer observed with pride. "As it should be," Grandma Ruth replied. "Knowledge doesn't need diplomas to be valid." Years passed. Timmy completed medical school, did a residency in pediatric neurology. Ethan became a doctor of physical therapy and a university professor. The two continued collaborating, now as established professionals, developing protocols that combine traditional techniques with the knowledge Dorothy had left. "We created something new," Lucas explained in lectures. "It's not traditional medicine versus alternative medicine. It's integrative medicine, which uses the best of both worlds." The scholarship fund created in Dorothy's name had grown. Dozens of students had been helped. Some of them now worked in the field, continuing the legacy. When Timmy was 30, already established as one of the most respected pediatric neurologists in New York, he and Ethan finally published a book together, Beyond the Impossible, Integrating Traditional Wisdom and Modern Medicine. The book was dedicated to Dorothy Johnson. On the cover there was a photo of her with baby Timmy, applying one of the massages that would become so important. The launch was an emotional event. Jennifer and Michael were there, now in their 50s, with graying hair but still vibrant. Grandma Ruth, at 88 years old, was frail but present. Dorothy's daughter came from Tennessee, especially for the event. "My mother would be so proud," she said, tears in her eyes as she held the book. "She is proud," Timmy assured. "Wherever she is, she knows what we managed to do with her legacy." The book was a moderate success. It wasn't a bestseller, but it reached the right audience. Healthcare professionals who wanted to learn more, families seeking hope, researchers exploring new approaches. But more important than sales was the impact. Protocols developed based on the work began to be implemented in clinics. Children with diagnoses similar to Timmy's were receiving integrative treatments. Not all had the dramatic recovery that Timmy had, but many showed improvements that surpassed initial prognoses. "We're not promising miracles," Timmy always clarified. "We're promising that we will try, that we will use all available tools, that we won't give up just because a book says it's impossible." It was exactly Dorothy's philosophy. One afternoon, Timmy visited Dorothy's grave. He did this regularly, but this time he had something special to share. "Hi, Dorothy. I brought news. The protocol based on your techniques was officially approved for use in 3 hospitals, not as a standalone treatment, but as a complement to traditional physical therapy. It's a small start, but it's a start." He stayed there for a while in silence, feeling the gentle New York wind, and he could swear he heard her voice, that gentle Tennessee accent, saying, "I knew you could do it, my boy." The journey that began with a baby who shouldn't walk and a cleaning lady who refused to accept the impossible had transformed into something much bigger. It had changed lives, altered medical practices, and proven that sometimes the most important answers come from the most unlikely places. Timmy walked back to the car, the slight limp still present after all these years. But it wasn't a limitation. It was a reminder of where he came from, of what he overcame, and of all the amazing people who helped him along the way, especially a cleaning lady with magical hands and an even bigger heart. End of story. And you? What did you think of this story of overcoming and hope? Do you believe in the power of love and dedication to overcome challenges that seem impossible? Leave your opinion in the comments and tell us where you're following along. Your participation is very important. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other inspiring stories.